These are the axle tubes that have to be modified to work with the quick change. Mine are from a later model something, and there's some differences in parts that you'll need whether you have the later model or the early model axle tubes. So if you look on the inside of these, yeah, like that, you can see that there's a bearing race in there. So for my model axle tubes, the bearing race that's required is this guy right here, right? So it's a Timken race, and that's what I got a part number on there. But what I will do, there's a conversion chart for the old stuff versus the new Timken numbers, and I will download that thing and try to insert it into this video so everybody knows what they're looking for. The entire length of the axles, the tube, not the axles, the axle tube has to be 23 5/8, I think is what I measured. And that's 23 5/8 on each side, plus the 3.75, I think, or 3 3/4 width of the quick change housing. And if I cut the ends off and get them welded back on to that measurement, you end up with a total flange to flange width, so that would be to the axle flanges, of 51. And then when you put the axles in and the rotors and calipers and all that stuff on, you end up at 56. So what I've got to do is I've got to cut these ends off, because as I showed you, I've got the other bearing ends that have to go on there. They're the big Torino Ford bearing ends. I'm going to take it to somebody to do it. The more I think about that, the better idea it is, because I don't have a fixture to set up rear ends. I could buy one, but I don't see me doing that very often. Maybe 2 or 3 times in the course of my building stuff and farting around, and that's considering, you know, how long you're going to live or whatever. So I'll get that done, and then I think we can go on with assembling the axle. So the plan is cut the ends off, knock the races out, bring the whole shebang to the fab shop to get welded up. I'm going to leave the leaf spring perches on there, and the reason I'm going to do that is to be able to give the guy that's doing the work a place to clock the ends of the housing to make sure they're not all goofy canted. After that, we'll put the races back in. I bought the bearings already. Those have to be pressed onto the center section there. Carrier, I'm sorry. I'm struggling for terminology today. And then we can go on with assembly. The other thing that probably would be necessary before making these look nice, you know, I mean, they're all rusty and stuff right now. So before making those look nice, it's got to be mocked up. It's got to be placed under the frame, and then the mounts for the 4 bars have to at least be welded in. And then after that, if you want to powder coat them or paint them or do whatever, then you can make that happen. Okay, so I'm going to cut the ends off and knock the bearing races out, and then we'll go from there. There's the end. There's the tube. We got to get that. We got to get that race out, which I think they make a special tool for, but we don't want to pay for that, so we're going to figure out another way to do it. Then you got to make sure those tubes are real clean. Then this end will go on something like that. And then you got your standard, axle down the hole, seal, bearing, retainer plate. Yeah, that's what we're shooting for. Okay, so now that we got the tops cut off of both of them, the ends cut off of both of them, the next problem is getting that race out. Now, you wouldn't think that would be a big deal, right? Slide hammer, race puller, but it's not going to work that way. So I'm going to have to do some thinking on this. The lip inside there, I bet, I mean, I would be surprised if it's more than 1/8 of an inch, certainly. Maybe even 1/16. So I'm gonna do some research on that and see if I can figure out how to get the races out. Then that'll be the next thing. Get both races out, and then from there, you know, I brought these things in to be boiled at a radiator shop. Nice people, charged me $60 to boil these things out, and there's still all kind of crud in the tubes, and I don't want to build the rear end and have that, you know, to deal with, a bunch of grit and who knows what from the 40s. So I've got to get those cleaned out real well before I bring them in to get them done. But let me see if I can figure out how to get the races out. Getting ready to take some bearing races out. So did some research on this. There was a couple of different ways to do it. I'm going to try the easy way, which I'll describe in a minute. Then there's the little bit harder way. So the inside where these races sit on the ledge, the flange that they kind of butt up against there, you know, there's not a very big lip to get in there, and your normal bearing races pullers will not do. So I had one guy that talked about just grinding down a piece of metal from the inside. It's got to be the right size. He had a picture. So I took a screenshot of that picture, and I'm going to put that in this video for those who want to do it that way. And who knows, maybe I'll end up doing that way because this may not work. And then there's the other guys, and there were several of them, who said, here's what you do. You take your welder, you crank it up, and what you do is you run a small thin bead around the inside of the races, and then you set the axle tubes on in, and you wait for a satisfying clink sound to happen, and the thing just falls out. Well, I'm gonna try it. Nothing wrong with that, right? Well, there it is. Hopefully you can hear me with the propane heater going. It's chilly here. So not 100% just fallout. That's not the way I did it. I just needed, you know, the thing out of there. So I did have this sitting around. It was a just piece of steel rod that I had turned down from something. I don't know. It's got a thin lip on it. And when I put it in there, I got it right up against just the very edge, the lip that was sticking out. And I will say this, it came out a lot easier because I had kind of tried that with a big old sledgehammer, you know, whacking on that thing, trying to get it out, and it didn't go. So I will say that, you know, welding a bead around the center of it helped a lot. So anyway, I'm going to get this other one out, and then it will be off to the machine shop. So hopefully have that back pretty soon, be able to show you something else. I know it takes me a long time between videos, but I have a JOB. Matter of fact, I have a JOB that keeps me very busy. And this is all stuff I'm doing in my off time, hopefully like a lot of you dudes. And I'm trying to have fun and relax. Makes me feel good to set some goals and accomplish them. Yeah, type of dude I am. Okay, let's see. Probably next time you see these, they will be back from the machine shop, and then I would imagine we will take them, we'll put them on that part over there, and then we'll come over here and start mocking up where the 4-bar setup is going to go, get some of that tacked together, weld the brackets on the tubes, and then I can clean the tubes up, get them painted. And no, they're not in the best shape. You can see that one down there. You know, it's got some some metal missing from it. They're fine for what I'm going to do. And I want some original stuff on the car. The frame's not original. It's all brand new stuff that I got decent deals on. But this is what I want to do on this. Otherwise, I would have just gone out and bought axle tubes and spent a whole lot of money and not learned a thing. But as usual with all the things I do, I consider it an education. And yeah, you do pay money sometimes for an education, but that stuff stays with you forever. Till you get senile. So we got that going for us. Okay, more when I get it. Alrighty, let's take a look at what we got back from old Jeffrey, my hot ride guy. Same dude down in Mahalia that did the machine work. So some nice work there, huh? Nice tigging. The length should be 23 5/8. When I measured out, they're about 23 3/4, so 6/8. So they're about 1/8 of an inch longer than I would have liked them. However, 1/8 inch is well within my tolerance. Should be within yours too. I don't think that's going to affect us a whole lot. As I said, I left the spring perches on so he could clock these things correctly. So you can see they're going to be in the right orientation for me to put them back on. And the next thing that's going to happen is I will cut off the spring perches. We will throw them on the rear end, on the center section. And then I'll show you how he, I'll insert a picture here to show you how he welded these up. And what he did was he basically machined a puck to go in where the bearing races are on the bottom on each side. You know, it's squared off. So you can put a solid, you know, puck in there with a hole in the middle that was centered. And then he put the 9-inch fixtures in his rear end alignment tool, and then he bolted the bells together. So by doing that, he made this one long continuous unit, you know, without the center section, but bolted together by the bells, and then he aligned everything that way. So I thought that was a clever, creative way to do things. Maybe that's the way that everybody does it. But anyway, good pictures of that. So anyway, cut the spring perches off, put these dudes on the center section, and then what I'll do is be able to take the whole assembly and align it under the frame, center it up, and then probably mock up the 4-link and the shock mounts. I'll probably check Roadster Supply, which is my favorite go-to shop so far. Messing with you know, early Ford stuff. They're out in Cali, I believe is correct. Just good dude. Same dude always answers the phone. He's the owner. He's the guy, and he's probably got a pretty good steer on what parts we would want. But these came out really good, and I'm happy with that. Cost, yeah, it cost about $300. Could I have bought bells and stuff for that much? Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's a maybe. I didn't price them. I don't care. I like the fact that I do have at least some original parts for a, you know, 1930s or 40s model vehicle. And again, part of the learning process, right? So just seeing other people do stuff, I get an education on how they do it, and just yeah, it works for me. Maybe you can save some money and just learn from me, right? So that's why I do these videos. Well, let's see what we can get done tonight. I'm back out here in the sticks where I belong. Forgot some things. Don't have my big air compressor hooked up. Got one air compressor somewhere else. Got another air compressor and another somewhere else. And so I don't have what I really need to be able to use the low dollar cut 40 there to zip off the, oh, those little mounts sitting right there. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those, which I have dug out of my collection of rusty nuts. Everybody needs that. And then I'm going to move that tire there, put that piece of carpet under that thing, take that center section over there. I'm going to bolt those on it, and we're going to see what it looks like under there. I've got 3 jack stands picked out, and we are going to set the rear end in there and start seeing about centering it up. There we are. Well, for some of you, this is probably no big deal, but for me, it's that point where you go, ooh, cool. Ain't that something? So when Jeffrey did the ends on here, he marked the center lines of both axles, so you can see the center line there. I marked the center line on the frame where that's supposed to go a long time ago when I was putting the frame together. Same on the other side. So if I can find my little centering devices, plumb bobs, I should be able to figure out some centers on there. Then I got to get up on that shelf and dig through the 4-link stuff to see if I can get that off. And then we got to start talking about ride heights and some of those things, how far the frame is going to be jacked up, whether the bars are going to be in the right place to be parallel. Yeah, there's all kind of stuff going on now. Oh yeah. Yep, there's lots of stuff going on. That is pretty close to centered. So you can see I've got the plumb bobs hanging down on either side there. Actually, the carpet ended up being a pretty slick idea with everything propped on the carpet, like the jack stands and the wood blocks that I have holding the back of the rear end up. If you need to slide it left, right, forward, aft, it makes it really easy on the concrete. Now, your results may vary on there. Here's all the parts of the 4-link kit. So I'll have to get that sorted out. And then what I'm looking at over here is the height of the axle. So that probably needs to come up about 3 or 4 inches, which means if I'm looking at the entire frame, you know, I'm going to have to lift the entire frame up. So starting to look at, you know, what kind of the stance is going to be. And I bought the wheels secondhand. Some guy had them on his 34, and he does have these really huge, you know, really tall tires on the back. I think they'll look good. Kind of the flair of the car that I'm looking for. May not be for everybody, but I'll have to lift the frame up and then start getting the rear end up to height. So I'll lift that a couple of times and get it pretty close before I start doing anything else. Now, I know you saw me do the rest of this stuff on this frame, putting it in shape to be, you know, this far along. But bear in mind, I still have a lot of welding to do, finishing up the bars here. I still have to pull the bars in on that side. You know, I pulled these in. You can see where the ends are, and they're kind of offset from here. Not really that worried about that. I don't think I'm going to pull the back set of bars off and try to, you know, redo those. I can live with a little bit of offset on them, but the front ones, because of the trans mount, yeah, have to get that fixed. So there's plenty left to do, but it's nice to make a little bit of progress. All right, this is probably pretty close to ride height. From what I've read, caster should be somewhere around 5 to 7 degrees in the front. Some guys say a little more. That's 4.9. And I would imagine that if it's set up approximately here, I can get it a little bit lower and put an exact 5 in there. But I would imagine if it's set up about here and then the shocks are measured correctly, once the body goes on, it will settle slightly and probably put me where I need to be. Of course, you put the motor in the front, you got that issue to deal with too. So I'll have to kind of finagle that a little bit, but I think that will be pretty sufficient. I hope that's enough room between the rear end and the shock mount there that it's not going to whack that thing. I guess you put bump stops on and you don't have to worry about that. So suspension travel, I guess you only need a couple of inches. So that will probably be pretty close. You probably thought this was just going to be a video on putting together the quick change, but there's a lot of other things that go into it, like suspension stuff. But we'll go ahead and look at everything because it all matters, right? And it all counts, and it's all hot rodding. So in that vein, so I bought this unequal length 4-bar kit from probably Speedway or somewhere. I got the polished stainless, which looks pretty good. I mean, there's some dings and stuff in it, but hey, it's going to go into the car anyway, right? So I was looking for instructions on Speedway's site, and they have some cop-out that talks about, oh, well, you know, we don't put instructions for it because of the different this and the different that. Dudes, come on. Just put something out that gives us a little bit of direction instead of having to make me go hunt and peck all over the ham and, you know, all over the internet. But anyway, basically, there are some instructions different place. You can look at, you know, Jalopy Journal of the Ham and see it there. You can also look at Helix. You know, they make some or resell some suspension stuff. I think they have some instructions. So there's a couple of different places. Maybe I'll post links for that. Anyway, so the overall for this is you have to get the rear end, that thing right there. You've got to get it centered up where it's going to go, both laterally and, you know, forward and backwards. Maybe that is lateral, horizontal and lateral, and vertical. Hey, all of the above. So you got to get it centered up where you want to go first. And then you need to set the pinion angle. The pinion angle is anywhere from 1 to 3 degrees. It's measured right off the snout right there using an angle finder. So we set that up, and then it says assemble your suspension components fully, and then you got to start laying them out. So what we have is the triangulated bars up at the top here. Couple of things with that. Make sure that your nut faces the inside down there. You would never get that bolt out if you made the mistake of leaving that in and welding it at the same time. So make sure the nut is on the inside. All right, that's pretty important. And then the other thing is on these brackets right here, you can see that doesn't make a straight line with the frame right down along here. So it's going to require a little grinding there. And then because it's laser cut stuff, of course, you're going to need to grind it off right there. It doesn't fit up against your frame. Good enough as far as fit up goes. I mean, you could still probably spray a bunch of weld across there. If you're a TIG guy playing that game, yeah, that's not going to work. Other stuff that's interesting. So the brackets that go on the bottom there, if you see how this is laid out, all right, that is pretty much under where it would go in the back. Of course, I need to move my jack stands. I got to do all that stuff. But if you look, if you're going to use the bracket as it comes from the factory, then it's not going to work very well, because what you're looking at is that bracket interfering right up here with all of the jungle gym stuff that's up there. So I may eat my words on what I said as far as leaving the center section bars there and not making any modifications to them. I talked about in a previous video how, again, the instructions aren't very good for assembling this part up in the front. And what you're looking for is you want your transmission mount to be fully on over here and fully on over here. So they changed the type of bars that they sent with this this particular setup, and they used to use nothing but square stock. Now they use rectangular stock, and they don't really tell you how to align it. And my mistake was not putting this thing on before I got all this stuff welded. Now it's just tack, so you get to take it off. So that's great. But basically, the outside of that bar needs to be even with the outside of here. Me being me, of course, I put the inside aligned with the inside, and what that does is your transmission cross member or your mount doesn't fully sit on the bar. All right, so I've got to take those off and do some reshaping. You know, it's all hot rodding, it's all fun. Oh, that just fell off the back. Fantastic. This one had to be reshaped because of where the pedal sits. And then the other things with your brake pedal, you know, if you pull the brake pedal up like that, like you might be apt to do with your foot, you would lose all braking because you now have no actuator rod. Pardon me while I put this back in. Pardon me while I whip this out. You would have no actuator rod going into your brake master cylinder. So there needs to be some type of stop that does not allow you to pull the pedal any further back than it being in the fully up position. So what will probably happen there is I can envision just welding a nut to here, having a bolt sticking out and a jam nut, so it will bear up against the pedal right there. You just wouldn't want that to come back any more than possible. That, or you could put a little wedge of steel right there. I think the bolt and nut situation would probably be better because you would have the ability to adjust it if you needed to do that. So those are things to work on. Here we are post-tacking the top bars in. So the top bars are level as far as, you know, the world for all you flat earthers out there. The axle is centered as far as where the seat notches are. So good Lord, I hope that's the right place. It's gonna be, because I will put the wheels on this rolling wagon here, and I will make the body fit where it goes. It's gonna look right. But it would have been nice to, you know, have 10 people to be able to be here and help you with all those stuff. But I am a one-man operation, and I like it just like that. Every once in a while I have some buddies over, but, you know, you got to have some people who know what they're doing before you start turning them loose with stuff. And I don't know, we help each other out, but it's not a group effort, if that makes sense. Okay, so centered crossways in the frame, centered backwards and forwards, 3 degree. It was really freaky. I've got wood blocks under there holding the back of the quick change, and I put the electronic or digital angle finder on there. It was right at 3, so fantastic. Got everything tacked in. A tip from Rat Rod Bob. If you hadn't watched his channel, man, what are you doing here? Go watch something interesting. Put you a washer in. You know, there's, if I can point to it, there's a washer on that side. And that's just to give you a little bit more room after you're done welding this thing. You just, you know, you want to be able to get your stuff in and out. So just give yourself a tiny bit of slot there. Trust me, you can tighten that up, and it's not going to be a problem. So that's where I am so far on this. So far so good. I'm happy with all that. There's some stuff I have to do now, since this pretty much gives me some good centering. I will be able to take this apart, and then I've got to get those leaf spring perches off the bottom of the axle tubes, those guys over there, because I really can't go any further until I get those things zipped off. Right, here's the part where we get to learn from our mistakes. So what I did is I got my little air compressor out, got my plasma cutter going, and went ahead and cut off those leaf spring hangers, leaf spring mounts, whatever you want to call those, on the bottom of the axle. I will say, you know, they were kind of useful for some things, but I should have taken those off sooner, because this was kind of a pain in the butt. And now I'm gonna have to go back and recenter the axle and reset the pinion angle, because, well, I mean, I was hammering on some stuff on the bottom, you know, cut them off part way with the plasma cutter, and then you got to tap them off, and don't want to get too much heat in there. So of course I would take the little, oh, excuse me for a minute, the little nozzle off my air compressor hose, and make sure we had cooling air on those after I cut a little bit. But I got those off now. We'll have to go back and grind the underneath, and I don't have time to do that today, I'm afraid, but I will get that done. And then the next thing will be go back, center the axle, left, right, front, back, make sure it's still there. It's gonna be pretty close, but I mean, why not be as good as you can while you can, because we're all getting older, and then we know what happens with that. Yeah, memory's the second thing to go. And I can't remember what the first one is. So that's what I'll do. And then from there, I can start working on what I want for a shock angle. So there's the upper shock mount. You can see that, right there. And then, of course, I was down here making fire on this carpet. Oops. So lower shock mount looks like that. You know, that part goes on the underside of the axle. So I have to figure out where displaced inboard to outboard I want to be for the shocks. And then I also need to measure for the shocks, get all that set up. After that, I'll be able to take this whole assembly out, finish weld the mounts, and then I will take the whole thing back apart, and we will put the guts in it. And then after that, I'm sure there'll be some paint work involved on the bells, because I'm not going to leave them all rusty like that. Sorry for you rust freaks. I'm just not doing that on this car. Not that I don't like it. I think it's cool. But you do you, and we'll go on from there. Okay. See you in a few. Gotta remember to take videos and stuff. Gotta remember. All right. So left off with the upper bars kind of complete on there. Mighty fine. And now I am working on placement of the mounts for the shocks and lower bars. And I've had to do some CAD work on here. And when I say CAD, I mean cardboard aided design. Because these things are made for round tubes. And what I mean by round is a tube that is concentrically round and the same size all the way across. And if we take a quick look, we can see that those axle tubes are tapered. So using a piece of cardboard here, had to you know, throw that on there, do some bending, do some cutting, and it's really these front edges right here are way too pronounced. So now I'm gonna tack those on where I think they go, and see if I can figure out the placement towards center line. And then I've got to trim the other one and do the same. And then I got to start figuring out how to mount these bars, because they're not going to go on just like the kit came. It's going to take modifications. That's hot rodding. Okay, yeah, that part right there. All right, I think I've got the one on that side tacked in where it needs to be. I wouldn't say it's like the land of 1,000 happiness, because I would rather not have stuff hanging down below the frame like that. You can see it's all gonna have to be boxed in, which is fine. I mean, you know, you can create strength doing that, so it's not like, I don't know, it's not like I'm gonna put 500 horsepower in here and just rip it up. But I would prefer a more elegant solution than that. However, I think once it's boxed and welded in all properly, I think that's going to be sufficient. I'm mounting my bars parallel. They may not look that way due to the top one angling in, but when you measure level with the ground, or when you take a level with the ground, they are. So that's good. And I guess I will press on. I made sure, and I looked at shock clearance where it's going to mount in that hole right back there, you know, down to the shock mount on the bottom. It's going to be pretty close to the frame, but based off my one of my other projects, I measured the diameter of the shock, and that should not be a problem. So that's cool. So this is going to need a solution, because I can't just leave it mounted. I may have to cover up that hole right there, which is fine. I'll just make a plate and put it over that hole. So that will not be an issue. And then I had to woodchuck quite a bit on that. I don't know if you can see it, but where's my finger? Yeah, I can't even get my finger in the shot. It's one of those days. But where it goes up toward the frame there, I had to cut it to get it. Let me zoom out. In between the rails over here. So like I said, it'll have to be boxed on the outside and boxed on the inside. So I'll get that all sorted out. But I think the setup is where I need to be. So for the time being, that's what I'm going to go with. I got to do the same thing on the other side. That ought to be absolutely no fun at all, but it's what we got to do to get what we want. So on with the show. 2.8, is that close enough? You know what's maddening is you're trying to set the pinion angle, and depending on where you put that thing, you get a little bit different reading. I don't know, you just expect more out of stuff and you usually don't get it. Okay, so I have cleaned some stuff up. Probably could have cleaned a little more so you could see better. But, all right, so this is what I'm stuck with on the bottom side here. That is to get the links square with the ground. That's what I want. Did a lot of reading. Man, there are a lot of different opinions on this stuff. Like, you know, some guys are worried about the center of rotation, and I don't know what all. All I can tell you is, after a bunch of reading and considering, this is the way I'm going to do it. So they're going to be parallel to the ground on the bottom. They're within like 0.2 degrees of parallel on the top, and I'm going to have to box all that in, which is fine. It's just you know, it was either that or find some really long brackets and then start welding plates on the bottom. And if I'm gonna have to weld plates anyway, I might as well just use what I have. Some of you are just gonna hate that, and it's gonna be ugly, and you're not gonna be able to stand it, and that's okay. That's okay. I feel sorry for you, but I'm happy for me. So, tacked everywhere, pretty good as far as, you know, where it's gonna be centered in the car. I don't think the shocks are gonna hit. The shocks, I can get anything between 12 and 14 inches, so I'll shoot for something in there. I think most people use 180 to 200 pound springs, so that's what I'll do for that. And then I gotta clean these axles up some more. You can see not all the stuff is off of there. Pull everything off, finish weld it. Hope it doesn't shift too much. Do my best, and then blow it up and start doing stuff like painting the bells and then assemble the guts finally. It's been a long run just to get here, and that's okay. I think it's cool, and it's my car. So I got the welding done for the brackets for the 4-bar links. I ground some of the welds down just because they were just weren't pretty. I wanted to make them nice as I could. Not that I'm not happy with them, you know, they look pretty good as far as I'm concerned. And they're gonna do everything I need to do, but it is what it is. So I still need to pull all of the rust and stuff off of there using a wire wheel or something like that. But we can get started with that.